What do you have in your hand? That's a great question to ask. Matter of fact, the first time that we have come across that is in the Bible, whenever God asked that question of Moses. And that was at a time where God was asking Moses, calling Moses to do something very, very important in his life.
Absolutely. His main calling.
His absolute main calling, yes. And Moses was objecting to God.
Yes, he was. he had no confidence.
Has anybody ever been there before? God's calling you to do something. You're like, I can't do this. And God, let me give you the reasons why.
I'll never admit to that.
And so God asked Moses, what is that in your hand? And what he had in his hand was a shepherd's staff, not something that would have shown him have a great position of authority or power or great skills or anything. But God had Moses use that shepherd's staff throughout his ministry to do great miracles for the Lord. Mm-hmm. And so this podcast episode number 25 of the Gen 224 Marriage Podcast, and we're Larry and Sue, your host, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Hi.
In this episode, we're going to challenge you to ask yourself that question. What is it that you have in your hand?
Yeah, absolutely. We just had the opportunity this last weekend to speak. We just talked about in the previous episode about, your message and what you have for the world. And one of the questions that we like to ask people is, what could you talk about for 20 minutes with no preparation? Mm-hmm. Now, we did give some preparation for this talk, right? Because it was a formal thing.
If you have the opportunity to prepare.
Yes, absolutely.
But
yes. But we actually had a lot of this already in our minds. And so we just had to organize our thoughts for it.
Yes, absolutely. And so the topic that we had been given was to talk on multiple streams of income. I think we have talked about this frequently, that our entrepreneurship journey has primarily been through e-commerce, even though we've done a lot of coaching along the way in the e-commerce space, primarily prior to this new thing that we're doing. And so this was a group of e-commerce sellers that we were presenting to. So you got to know your audience too, right? Mm-hmm. And so we were talking about multiple streams of income, not having all of your eggs in one basket. Right. And so the first question that we kind of workshopped our way through all this, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And we had them, we made them work.
We did. We had to keep everybody awake. We were after lunch.
Well, it was the very last session.
Yes.
So everybody was super tired.
Right.
And so, yeah,
absolutely.
So that's what we had in our hands to work with.
Yes.
We had that circumstance, that situation to work with. And we thought, rather than us just lecturing for an hour and people falling asleep, let's workshop this. And so the first question that we asked them was, what do you have in your hand? Mm-hmm. And so, I don't know, do you want to dig in further?
So we wanted them to think about, what are the skills that you have gained in your life? What are some of the things? Because we were talking about adding another income stream.
Yes.
And so when you think about that, as an entrepreneur, there's so many possibilities, which is really amazing, but it can also be a bit overwhelming and hard to filter things down. So we started with that question. What do you already have? What skills do you already have? Talents and knowledge that you can use to serve other people, because you can use that to build your next income stream.
Yeah. And so a kind of a prompting question for our audience and for you as well here today is, what is something that seems to come pretty easy to you that you see other people struggling with, right? And so that can be a wide range of things. Maybe you're really good at math and you look around, you're like, other people don't math very well, right? So as of right now, you're not saying, oh, I can make money at that. You're just making a list of all these things that you have, and really just thinking about skills at this particular moment.
Absolutely.
And for us, just to give an example, we see a lot of couples who really struggle to work together as a husband and wife. And I'm not saying that we haven't ever had struggles, but overall, it's come pretty easy for us.
it's come very naturally to us. And it's been something like even our first job that we had after we
Yes.
got married, we both worked in the same company. And I'll never forget, there was somebody at the company who one time asked me, he looked at me and he said, "Don't you two ever get a break from each other?" And the thought that went through my mind immediately was, why would I want a break from him? We're married, you
Yes.
know? And that was the first time I think I got the idea that the way we felt about working together wasn't average.
Right.
It wasn't what most people.
And the way we thought about marriage
Yes,
was not average,
for sure.
because we were in our first year of marriage.
Yes.
Like literally probably within our first
Yes.
few months
hmm
of being married. And I don't know. I mean, there are dangers of adding extra stressors to your life and to your marriage too early. But we were just well equipped.
Yeah.
And
hmm
I don't know. I think a lot of it did have to do with attitude. Just exactly what you said is, I get it that I think people need alone time at times,
Yeah.
and we have alone time,
Sure.
right?
Mhm.
But it's a very small percentage of our day,
Right.
for sure.
And we're almost always glad to spend time together.
Yeah,
Almost always.
almost.
Nothing is 100% in life.
Absolutely, yeah. And we don't want to paint this Pollyanna
Right.
as everything is
Right.
always perfect type of a picture. But when you see something that you like in our situation, we literally have couples that come to us on, I don't know, it happens a lot, but just because of the topic that we talk about, but people will say, "Oh, I can never work with my spouse."
Mm.
And I always just want to say, like, never, like, are you really just planting your flag on that and saying, I refuse to even try? Sometimes people tell us a story.
hmm
We had someone recently just said that he and his wife had tried that for a while, but they had just like a ton of things happen all at once.
Yeah. And they
They-
didn't know how they didn't have a plan on how to navigate things.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mhm.
And so that's what we teach
It
people.
became It became a huge stressor to them.
It became a huge stressor for them. He
Yeah.
talks about that it really had almost ruined their marriage. And so
Mhm.
they said, we're going to step away from it.
Which we would advise. The marriage is
Absolutely.
more important. Absolutely.
Absolutely. We always say the business can fail,
Yeah.
but the marriage cannot.
Right. Right.
You have to have that priority. So if you see that in your exact situation, then yes, don't work together for this season.
Mhm.
Go through some steps to get yourself prepared for
Yeah.
that.
But you took a vow to live with this person for the rest of your life and to be married to them. And we think that if the desire is there to work together,
Yeah.
you can make it happen. You might have to make some adjustments, but you can make it happen.
Right.
I think you can do it.
Right. And there's definitely, I don't want to dig too far into the weeds. We've kind of talked a little bit about our marriage coaching program that we walk couples through, but there's some very specific tools that you can use, and some very specific skills and attitudes that you can develop
Right.
that really
Right.
make it very, very possible.
Well, and this kind of leads into the second thing that we walked people through in our workshop. And we asked them to list out what were some of the knowledge and the skills that they had that other people don't. And so kind of the prompting question we asked was, what's something that other people ask you about, ask your advice about, or they come to you and they obviously see you have something that I need, and they ask you about it. So what are some of the topics that people frequently ask you about?
And so where the first question really dealt more with skills.
Yes.
This one deals more with knowledge.
Right.
And so it's just in your brain.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
And this kind of comes back to the thing about what could you talk about for 20 minutes without much preparation or any preparation.
Mhm.
And so again, this just takes a little bit of time for you to stop and think about, where does my mind go whenever I've got a little downtime.
Right.
Or just like what you said, you're sitting at a table with a group of people, and where does that conversation kind of go? And you just kind of light up and you're like, oh, I can take off with this a little bit.
Yeah.
And we've got a number of those areas. Obviously, marriage is one of those things, because we're kind of known as the married couple who works together.
Yeah.
And so whenever we sit down and talk with people, they just kind of naturally start asking us that.
Right.
So in that case, we put it out there first, and then
and
that conversation kind of comes to us.
Mhm.
But then there's also some natural things like parenthood. People
Yeah.
like, you've raised 5 kids. How did you do it?
And we survived
So
to tell about it.
well, and we survived. Yeah.
We survived. We
Yes.
survived to tell about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Definitely ups and downs with all of aspects of life, but
Hmm.
that's what you want to share and be vulnerable
Hmm.
with people along the way. So I don't know. Do we need to give any more examples or?
No, just this is all about what's some knowledge that you have gained that other people can see, and they come to you and ask for your advice on it. One of the things that can be kind of new to people to understand is that the things that you have knowledge about, there are likely people who would be willing to hire you or pay you
Yeah.
to share your knowledge with them.
Yeah.
And so that can feed into another income stream.
That's right. So then kind of the third step that we took people through was kind of combining those first two, the skills and the knowledge. And then what are some maybe some products that you could produce that would be money generating things? So now, I at the very, very beginning, I said something about math, um, just off the top of my head.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then maybe there's I'm trying to think like maybe there's a knowledge of sports or like in my case baseball. And so what's something that you could take those two together? Well, baseball statistics is a great thing that would be kind of in my wheelhouse.
For
and,
sure.
And something
you know everything about baseball stats.
and so maybe like, okay, I'm just going to take this out to this is just totally off the top of my head here. Okay. But if you start thinking about some products and in particular, we like to encourage people to go toward digital products.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And again, we were in a room full of e-commerce sellers who have to spend money on product and then hope that it sells later at a profitable dollar amount.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're saying, what is something you could put out there that there's no money spent ahead of time? All right. So that's always a good income stream for people to add.
And that you can sell the same thing over and over and over again. That's kind of a cool thing too.
Yes. So I know that fantasy sports, fantasy baseball is really popular. And so then I've got this knowledge of math, or the skill of math, this knowledge of baseball. I could tie that together and put together some sort of a guide to reading statistics so that your fantasy baseball team will win the championship this year.
Ooh.
Right?
Ooh, that's a good one. You should write that.
I literally am thinking of this on the spot and I'm going,
write that down.
That could work. So hopefully you see how quickly this could happen and how easily this could happen for you to come up with some sort of like an ebook. What are some other?
Oh yeah, you can do ebooks. So one of the things that people have come to me about is frugality, budgeting, that kind of thing, because we raised 5 children. For a long time it was on one salary, which was fairly modest, and we did it. And so one of the things I would share with people kind of as credibility is I would say, I feed my family of 7 on $100 a week for a grocery budget. And people are like, how do you do that? And so I have actually done little workshops where I walk people through, how you can do that and not have to, just feed your children rice and pasta all the time. So, and so that is something that I have done. Is just something that was a natural bent for me. So I've done workshops, but I also have created worksheets and journal books and things like that around budgeting, around shopping frugally, that type of thing, and just put those up on Etsy and sold them there. So those are some things that you can do, as well as create some digital products that people can just download and buy the same thing over and over again. I spent the time creating that once. I sold it over and over and over again.
Yeah,
so
that is a great example. And so this is something where, like, if you've got an audience, if you've got a group of followers, this is like just really, really simple. But you don't have to have an audience because of sites like Etsy. There's also KDP, which is Kindle Direct Publishing, an Amazon product, and you can publish an ebook. It can be a low content book, meaning that it's a journal where there's a lot of blank pages, but you give prompts or things like that. There are just so many opportunities and resources out there that you can use in those skills and that knowledge, and then you can tie those together into some sort of a digital product. So
so taking the things that the thing that you could probably speak on for 20 minutes without any preparation ahead of time, putting a little bit of thought into what can you do with that could become an income generating activity, and working through that. So we took that, we said, hey, we've done multiple streams of income fairly successfully. I mean, we raised our family, for many years on that. We've been full-time for 12 years now. And we were able to walk people through an exercise that by the end, there were many people in that workshop, in that session, that said, I have an idea for my next income stream based on thinking through these questions and kind of putting it all together and seeing what they could do, including people that I didn't expect to necessarily need another idea, but they got them.
No. And the organizer of the event said, I've got several new ideas. We're like, okay, we didn't really think that you needed that or wanted that. But, we had several people share, and it was more the leaders in the community that were sharing than some of the people that we quote unquote thought they needed it,
Yeah, right.
So that was an encouragement for us. And I think this is something that is applicable to anyone, no matter what your situation is, whether you're a full-time entrepreneur, you're doing a side hustle, whatever your situation is, you do have to be cautious with it. You have to be careful not to get shiny object syndrome and try to get 12 things started at a time, like what we've done. We learned that.
We learned that one the hard way. What is that? Been there, done that, got the t-shirt, right?
Absolutely.
We need the t-shirt for that.
Yes. So I think what we would encourage you to do is to kind of walk through those yourself as an individual and as a married couple, and think through some of the different things that you could do, but come away with one. I think that's the biggest encouragement is one for now.
One at a time.
Right?
Yep.
And that whatever sheet of paper you write that down on, you can come back to that later. But then one more step beyond that is, once you've come out with that idea, then think about, what is the one thing that I can do maybe within the next week that will move me forward towards that income stream. All right. So again, we really believe a lot in taking action steps, and not, because you can come up with so many ideas, but if you don't take action on it, nothing's ever going to happen. And you just have to be really intentional about, what is that next one thing that I can do.
Absolutely. And ask yourself that every week. Every week, come up with the next thing. And before you know it, at the end of a year, you will have taken 52 steps towards that next income stream, and it will probably be flowing by then. So, so this was something that we took, something we already knew, that we knew really well. We organized it into a session, which we chose to do a workshop time, and we were able to serve people in that audience in a way that hopefully will help them, and they can take that and move forward and build the business that they're dreaming about.
Yes, absolutely. And again, that comes from one of us doesn't really love public speaking.
You've improved a lot.
I have.
You've really come
my
along.
attitude.
You don't even look like somebody who doesn't like to get up in front. So I don't think you can.
Well, yes.
I don't think you can make that claim anymore.
Oh well. So I hope that this has been encouraging and challenging and inspiring. Really, that's what we want to do with this podcast, is just to encourage you to just to take those next steps, and just to keep advancing and growing in your business, yes, but as a couple, for sure. And I'll just kind of add this here, because I was kind of joking about not being terribly comfortable with public speaking, but I love speaking publicly with you. And that is something I think that the Lord has used to draw us closer together. There is time and preparation together. There is prayer.
Yes.
Lord, please help me not to make a fool of myself. And then there is, especially once you've delivered that talk, then afterwards, there's just an extra connection.
Absolutely.
So
yes, absolutely.
I'm not saying that people have to do it, but it's just an example of another thing that we connect on.
Right. Absolutely. It certainly is. And it's also another way that we are able to serve people and just kind of work sharing our chemistry, I guess,
Yes.
with other people, and letting them see what's possible
Yeah.
when you work together.
Yeah, absolutely.
We love doing that.
All right. Well, I think this is a wrap for episode number 25. We've made it a quarter of a century.
Not a century.
Quarter of a century.
That'd be 25 years.
Well, quarter of a century.
A quarter of a quarter of 100.
A century of episodes. Oh boy. Anyway,
there's no recovery from this.
Let's
Sorry.
see if our editor will cut that out for us. I don't know. Let's just leave it.
It's up to our editor.
It's good to have a brain cramp whenever people are watching.
Yeah.
All right.
So episode 25 is in the books. We hope that you'll take what you learned today and continue to live together as one flesh today,
tomorrow,
forever.
Take care.
See ya.